Some call them visitors from the stars. Others call them invaders from the shadows. They're watching us, studying us, and perhaps planning their next move. From abduction stories and government cover-ups to their sinister experiments and alleged motives to manipulate humanity, we explore the darkest corners of this fascinating lore. Are they here for peace or something far more malevolent? Welcome to Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 1, The Oleander Files. Episode 10. File number 051. Alien. I'm your host, Michael, and it's time that we uncover the secrets that they don't want you to know. Let's begin. The concept of aliens, beings from planets or locations other than Earth, has fascinated humanity for centuries, blending science, speculation, and imagination. The early history of aliens can be traced back to ancient civilizations. Many ancient cultures speculated about beings from the stars, often integrating them into myths and religions. The Sumerians had stories involving the Anunnaki, who some interpret as extraterrestrial beings. Hindu sculptures describe flying machines and celestial beings, sometimes interpreted as aliens. The ancient Egyptians left art and architecture that some suggest point to extraterrestrial influences. During the Middle Ages, the idea of extraterrestrial life was largely dormant in Europe due to the dominance of religious worldviews, which often focused on Earth as the center of the universe. The Renaissance, through the 15th and 18th century, the works of Copernicus, Galileo, and others shifted that worldview from Earth being the center of the universe to one among many planets orbiting the sun, opening the possibility of life elsewhere. In the 19th century, scientific speculation began with advances in astronomy that revealed Mars and its canals. In literature, alien life became a popular theme in fiction. In the 20th century, scientific advances led to the discovery of exoplanets and deeper studies of the cosmos. These led to more rigorous speculation about extraterrestrial life, which leads us to the UFO phenomenon. In 1947, the Roswell incident sparked widespread interest in UFOs and conspiracy theories about government cover-ups of alien encounters. Now, the UFO or UAP investigations are more popular than ever, as governments, such as the United States, have begun declassifying reports on unidentified aerial phenomenon, reigniting interest in extraterrestrial possibilities. Aliens have become a symbol of humanity's curiosity about the unknown and our place in the universe. And one of the most popular are the alien greys, often simply called greys. They are one of the most iconic and widely recognized depictions of extraterrestrial beings. Their image is synonymous with stories of alien encounters and abductions. Their appearance can be small, humanoid, typically 3 to 4 feet tall. Large, elongated heads with no hair and smooth gray skin, oversized black almond-shaped eyes with no visible pupils, thin bodies with long arms, slender fingers, and small or no visible noses, ears, or mouths. They are often described as telepathic, communicating directly into the minds of abductees, and are portrayed as emotionless, analytical, and focused on experiments or research involving humans. They're the reptilians. They're described as tall, reptilian humanoids with scales, claws, and slit pupil eyes. Allegedly, they shapeshift, manipulate, and control powerful organizations on Earth. There's also the Nordics. They're also described as tall, human-like aliens with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a glowing aura. They're described as peaceful and spiritually advanced, often warning humans about the dangers of nuclear war and environmental destruction. There's also the insectoids. They're extremely tall beings, 7 to 10 feet, with insect-like features resembling praying mantises. They're telepathic and oversee genetic experiments conducted by the Greys. And finally, the tall Greys, similar to the small Greys, but much taller, 6 to 9 feet. They're believed to be the leaders or commanders of the small Greys, overseeing abduction experiments. And according to this file, they're in charge of so much more. At least the one my great-uncle Samuel had contact with. My great-uncle Samuel's first encounter with the alien named Blue happened very early on in his military career. He was what they referred to as a tall gray, visiting from the Zeta Reticuli system. Now, this particular alien's classification was EB7, which stood for Extraterrestrial Biological Entity number 7. No one knows how he got here. He just showed up one day, walking just outside one of the most active and famous secret government sites. He strolled right up to the nearest guard on duty without saying a word and surrendered himself. Now, all the EB aliens before him had something to offer or had crashed here and traded knowledge with us, but EB7 was different. He seemed happy to be here, but he refused to try to communicate. And just when the government had grown fed up with him and was ready to lock him up forever, well, that's when my great-uncle first met him. And something changed. For one thing, my great-uncle was the first person that EB7 tried to openly communicate with, though it was done all telepathically and through physical feeling. My great-uncle quickly gave him the name Blue because when he tried to make my great-uncle understand how to pronounce his actual name, he couldn't. But inside his mind, when he tried to decipher the strange language, my great-uncle saw nothing but a comforting hue of blue color, hence the name Blue. After a dozen sessions together, my great-uncle came to find out that Blue was just like him, a high-ranking military official who had gone AWOL from his people or species and came here. As Blue and my great-uncle built confidence together, Blue became more relaxed and available to offer up more information. But the problem is he would only speak to my great-uncle. So finally, one day, my great-uncle Sam explained to Blue that though he enjoyed connecting with him, that he was not the best person to share information and secrets with. He was just a humble soldier, doing what he was told. Blue repeated those words back to him. Finally, my great-uncle was able to convince him to speak to one of their most highest-ranked PhDs, Dr. Voss. She specialized in the mental and psychological well-beings of all the government's paranormal secrets. But Blue only agreed to talk to Dr. Voss if my great-uncle was present. So one early morning, Dr. Voss and my great-uncle met on the outside of the reinforced glass chamber at the center of Blue's housing room. Blue always referred to it as his shimmering prison because of the fluorescent lights above, which he said would give him a headache if they were on for too long. Blue stood perfectly still at just over 7 feet tall, with elongated limbs, smooth grayish blue skin, with jet black eyes that reflected the fluorescent lights from above. As Dr. Voss took a step closer, my great-uncle stood directly behind her, off to her right, and nodded at Blue as to say hello, and you can trust her. Dr. Voss started with, "Greetings, EB7. I've been told that you like to be called Blue." As if in an answer, Blue's head tilted ever so slightly, and a low pulse echoed through the chamber. Dr. Voss looked back towards my uncle, and he nodded. "That's normal. Keep going." EB7, I am to understand. Blue took a step back in defiance, and the doctor realized that she didn't use his name. "I'm sorry, Blue. It is my understanding that you enjoy talking to my chaperone whenever his availability is open. May I ask why only him?" Blue slowly turned his head towards my uncle, and another pulse flickered from behind the glass. My great-uncle whispered, "Friend." Dr. Voss wrote down what he had said and nodded in agreement. "Okay, Blue, why did you come here?" Blue stood firm, not moving, locking eyes with the doctor. It made my uncle uneasy at first, but then a wash of blue fell behind his eyes again, and he settled and waited for Blue to answer. But he never did. The doctor politely took a step forward and asked again, "Why have you traveled all this way?" Blue tilted his head ever so slightly, and another pulse rang out everywhere, smacking along the glass and rattling the lights above. Though nothing was said or nothing was shared in my great-uncle's mind, it felt threatening this time. My great-uncle placed a calming hand on the doctor's shoulder, as if to warn her, "Careful." She shrugged it off and followed up with another question. "Blue, does this question make you angry?" One word appeared in my great-uncle's mind. He leaned in and said, "No." With a new smile on her face, Dr. Voss asked again, "Okay then, Blue, why did you come to Earth? You've been here for years with no explanation of why you came here." A quickening of pulses radiated from Blue, immediately rumbling everything in the room. My great-uncle clutched his firearm and looked at Blue and thought, "Careful." Blue nodded towards him and then made eye contact with the doctor once again. He slowly took a step forward, placing his hand along the glass in front of him. He did it so delicately, there was no sound. Another pulse radiated from him, this time rattling the glass. Dr. Voss saw that as a challenge and leaned in closer and said, "I'm waiting." Blue's eyes focused on her, and in my uncle's head one word appeared. Her. He said it softly, and then placed his arm in front of the doctor. I'm thinking we might want to wrap up this interview. But she never broke eye contact with Blue. And she asked, "Her? Who? Who are you talking about?" Blue said nothing, staring harder into the eyes of the doctor. My great uncle said he asked him, in his mind, "What are you doing, Blue? Who are you talking about?" And in a fraction of a second, Blue's other hand slapped against the glass in front of them, creating the biggest pulse yet and shattering this unbreakable glass. As it rained down on my uncle and the doctor, Blue leaned forward, leaning down close enough to the doctor's face that she could smell his scent. She said it was sweet, like sugar blossoms. And before my uncle could react, Blue spoke for the first time and said, I came here for you, doctor." He swiftly raised his left hand, and my great uncle slammed backwards against the wall, pinned by an invisible force field. He said it didn't hurt, but he couldn't move. It was like he was paralyzed. The doctor began to scream, and with that, another pulse waded through the room, causing the doctor to drop her clipboard and her pen and to stand motionless as Blue walked around her slowly. My great uncle Sam couldn't move, and he screamed, "Blue, what are you doing?" Blue looked at him, and the doctor turned around and faced the same way as Blue, almost as if she was in a trance, and stepped right behind him, waiting for him to make the next move. Her eyes glazed over, and her face looked euphoric. Blue immediately made my uncle see different shades of colors, all of them forcing him to calm down. He couldn't control it. It was like he was being put at ease. And in his head, Blue said, "Thank you for being my friend." Then he turned and waved another hand, and a pulse blew the doors open, and he stepped out of the room. Dr. Voss followed, almost as if she was his new shadow. Sirens and flashing security lights flickered everywhere. But as security and every military man and woman who approached Blue, they all found themselves pinned against the wall. Though none of them were in pain, no one could move. Then Blue and the doctor casually walked past all of them until eventually he had found his way out. Everyone was trapped in place for at least another 10 minutes as Blue and the doctor disappeared over the horizon. And then suddenly, they were all let go, and everyone fell to the floor, unconscious, but content. Everyone except my great uncle Sam. He dropped to the floor, immediately picked up his weapon, and ran out the door, down the hallways, and eventually out the exit that Blue and the doctor escaped. He had hoped he could catch them on foot, and he ran as fast as he could. In his mind, he called out, "Blue, where are you? Where are you going? Blue, talk to me." This went on for 15 minutes until my uncle ran up over a ridge in the desert that led to a small valley that even in the daylight was in shadow. And there was Blue with the doctor by his side. And from the ground, a spinning portal of purple and black danced like a circular fire, growing with intensity and size until it was big enough for Blue to walk through. My uncle called to Blue again, but this time with his voice, and he readied his weapon. "Blue, don't make me shoot you." Blue turned and looked over his shoulder. It nodded, and in my uncle's head, Blue said, "You've been a good friend. Thank you. I've left you something." My uncle, dazed and confused, shook his head. "What are you talking about?" "You left me something. Where?" Blue nodded and raised one hand in the air and said, "Goodbye." Quickly, he and Dr. Voss stepped through the portal. My great uncle couldn't bring himself to fire on him, but he ran as fast as he could down the edging of the valley, coming to a stop at the portal just as it disappeared, leaving behind nothing but the smell of sugar and the desert floor just before rain. Angry and upset, my uncle let out a long, frustrated scream when another pulse hit him from nowhere. The pulse settled him and made him feel at ease, and pulled his attention down to the very spot that the portal had grown from. And floating just above the dirt was a shiny green jewel. He knelt down and cautiously picked it up, placing it in the palm of his hand. As he concentrated on this surprise gift, it began to glow brighter and brighter. Before, that was all he could see. And then, within the color, he got Blue's final message. It was a snapshot of the future. And according to this future, Dr. Voss was the sole catalyst to our future World War III. Apparently, some of her work and future work would lead to our next great war. A war with an alien civilization that she improperly decoded their initial message as violent and threatening. And to put it mildly, we lose, as my great Uncle Sam's mind fell back to normal. He wrapped his hand around the magical stone that had now fallen dark and dull. He placed it in his pocket, looked up into the sky before shaking his head and quickly making his way back to base. Now it says in his report that the government and my uncle's bosses did not take kindly to the story that Blue had shown them, and they considered what he had done an act of war, and that the next time the tall gray showed themselves, we would not be so kind to them. My uncle ends this journal with, "Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard." Now, there are many other times my uncle has dealt with aliens of various types, but he's never encountered another tall gray, and he thinks that's for the best. And he'd like to believe that the friendship that he made with Blue was real. And maybe, just maybe, EB7 saved the world that day. All right, fellow gardeners, I just wanted to thank everybody who's reached out, worried about the ongoing drama in my life lately. I feel like I'm having a hard time protecting myself. So I reached out to one of the local newspapers and TV stations to see if I could anonymously speak to someone. And now I wait. As for everyone who's been reaching out and sharing their stories, thank you, thank you, thank you. And honestly, I would say the majority of the stories are about UFOs and alien sightings. So I'm sure this will not be my last episode on this subject. So with that, you've been listening to Project Black Garden, a Monsters and Myths podcast. Season 1, The Oleander Files. I'm your host, Michael. And remember, monsters are real. And keep watching the skies.